What's going on, Buffs Nation? Coming at you again with another video. Please be sure to hit that like and consider subscribing if you like at least somewhat of what I have to say. So, here's the thing. I've been wanting to talk about this for a little bit because you've seen the conversations start to happen about what's happening with the DC. Why haven't we hired a defensive coordinator? What is up with this Pat Shermer hire, right? Which if you've been following my channel, you know that I've kind of warmed myself up to this, and now I'm really excited to watch it play out. And I think some of this is because reminding myself about just how unconventional, how against the grain this program is, how Coach Prime moves to the beat of his own drum. He's not just going to do something because that's how it's always been done, or that's the conventional way of doing things, or that's even the conventional way of thinking about building a program in certain aspects, right? And this was something that I talked to some of y'all about last offseason when I started this channel, talking about like, hey, you have to approach this whole Coach Prime Colorado thing with an open mind and just understand from the get go and remind yourself from the get go that things are just going to be done in a way that is unconventional. And so just keep an open mind. Okay. So if there were other coaches, like let's say a traditional college coach, for instance, Mike McIntyre. We'll use an old CU coach that I really did like. That, I mean, he was close. He was close to getting it done. That's how I see it. But for instance, let's take Coach Mike McIntyre. If he took over this program right now, in 2022, last year, or had a year, and then going into the next offseason, it had been like 2 months uh, into the offseason and he still hadn't hired a defensive coordinator. I mean, I would be concerned. But my level of concern with Coach Prime for things like this is a lot less, is a lot lower than how it would be with kind of your run of the mill college football coach, just because Coach Prime moves to the beat of his own drum. He's not concerned with looking like all the other college football programs, nor is he concerned about, building his staff in a way that looks like all these other college football programs, for better or for worse, right? And so that's kind of been the mindset that I've tried to remind to myself throughout this whole grand experiment, that in a lot of ways, this is going to continue to be an ongoing experiment. Again, we haven't seen much emphasis, put on high school recruiting. That is very unconventional when it comes to what the rest of college football has done. Okay. And, I've started to realize, over the last couple months or whatever, is it that important if some of the staff hires that you're having on the staff, is it that important if they're doing a bunch of in-home recruiting or not? If, hey, this thing is just going to be built through the transfer portal for the most part, and using, having those guys come in here having already used their one main transfer. Again, guys, you can tell me if this is different otherwise, but I still have yet to see a guy jump in the transfer portal for an immediate second um, transfer to play immediately that isn't a graduate transfer. So I know that there was some court rulings, and uh, yeah, I don't know how all this stuff goes, but I think as right now is Coach Prime's kind of taken a different approach with team building because of the transfer portal that we've seen previously. And so with bringing in certain coaches, the idea of, of hiring certain guys, I mean, we'll see what happens with the DC, but I think that, again, we have to approach this with an open mind. That's kind of how I'm doing it. And maybe that's why maybe I'm not as upset as you see, like some other people on Twitter or some other Buffs fans on message boards or on YouTube. That I'm not like totally freaking out, because I knew when we brought Coach Prime in here, things were just going to be done differently. And for some of these things, we just have to wait and see, right? I thought it was really interesting, the comment that he made earlier this week. It might have been on the show with RG3, I'm trying to remember, or maybe it was like on the pregame show or something, where he was saying, hey, a lot of these NFL guys, they're still wrapping up interviews. They're still, finishing off his season or their seasons. And I want to bring in guys that, want to play for us regardless of who's, the DC. Now, does that kind of cap your upside on the recruits, that you could have brought in if you had made this hire, weeks prior to now? Sure. I think that's a very fair criticism, but I think that's kind of interesting. Maybe Coach Prime is targeting somebody who is wanting an NFL defensive coordinator job, but isn't necessarily going to get it. And this might be the next best option for someone who wants to be a defensive coordinator at some level to prove that they can call plays and all of that. So it's going to be really interesting to see where the rest of this goes, right? And if the DC that comes in here is going to have any say on switching out any of the position coaches or not, we'll just have to see. But at the end of the day, I think what I want to encourage people is, yes, there are things to be critical of or skeptical of, or like, are certain things going to work? That's totally reasonable to question if certain things are going to be successful or not. The one thing that I would challenge all of us, including myself, is that to remind ourselves, along with doing that, understand that, like, with Coach Prime coming to Colorado, we knew we were going to get the unconventional 100% of the time. That's really it. So y'all, please let me know your thoughts in the comments as well on this. Am I drinking too much of the Kool-Aid? Is this a good take? Is this a bad take? Please let me know. Now, a few other things coming up with the channel that I do want to let you guys know. I do have a stream that I'm doing with Truck and Chubby later today. We're just going to cover kind of ranking who the best college quarterbacks are that are returning for 2024. I'm sure you guys have an idea of who I'm putting at number one, right? And hopefully, again, we get some good news, whether that's transfer, recruiting related, or coaching related over the next week or so. So y'all let me know what you think in the comments. Would really appreciate you hitting that like on the way out as well. That helps push this out to other Buffs fans. Let me know what you think. And as always, go Buffs.